keep moving like the scars aren't even there. It's in the air like a blazing flare. Don't stare 'cause the flames will burn us. I thought you were the one for me. That's why I gave you everything. Held you close by the stormy seas. Oh, you meant the world to me. I used to kiss your head when you cried for me. Hold your hand while the pain was over. Keep you warm by the roaring sea. You meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. My darling dear, you're never here. When I'm in pain, you hide and disappear. Like shadows in the atmosphere, charting the stratosphere. Yeah. I prayed for you and kept you near, in hopes you'd chase away my fears. I'm on my own, you made it so, and now I'm chasing nightmares. I used to run with you through the great big leaves, laugh at you when you laugh at me. Hope for us because I believe the home was just you and me. I thought you were the one for me. That's why I gave you everything. Held you close by the stormy seas. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, I'm gonna do this on my own. No point in blaming you, you did not know. Ah, like a blazing flare. Just stare 'cause the flames will burn us. I thought you were the one for me. That's why I gave you everything. Held you close by the stormy seas. Oh, you meant the world to me. I used to kiss your head when you cried for me.
What's up, guys? Just making sure you got me. I think I just left for a second and came back. You know me, my live streams. Yeah, if you can hear me, let me know in the chat, please. Let me know you can hear me, and then we'll get going.
Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. My darling dear, you're never here. When I'm in pain, you hide and disappear. Like shadows in the atmosphere, charting the stratosphere. Yeah. I prayed for you and kept you near, in hopes you'd chase away my fears. I'm on my own, you made it so, and now I'm chasing nightmares. I used to run with you through the great big leaves, laugh at you when you laugh at me. Hope for us.
What's up, guys? Can you hear me? If you can, please let me know in the chat if you can hear me, and then we'll get going. Because I never know. I never know. I know there's about a 30-second delay right now, so if you're asking questions, there's a 30-second delay. I think we're live. I can see it on my phone. I'm checking it. There is a 30-second delay. All right. Mike says he can hear me. That's good. That's good. All right. Derek's here. I'm just checking the chat real quick. Mike's here. What's up, Todd? World domination, buddy. Corey's here. Hey, Corey, thank you for being a channel supporter. Mike, thanks for being a channel supporter as well. 10K. That means you've been here for a minute. Scott, what's up, buddy? Jacob Mooney. How we doing, Jake? All right. I think we're all good. So welcome. Every time I start to talk. So welcome back, guys. It's been a couple weeks for sure. Thank you for letting me go on a little bit of a vacation. And that's really what this episode is going to be about. The month of July was awesome. I did a ton of traveling, both with the family and by myself. I got to crew and also pace in 2 amazing ultras. And I learned a lot, and I got a lot of questions on Instagram about it. And one that just came across, I definitely want to get to, and that was, what did I really learn? Did I learn anything from crewing and pacing ultras? And the answer was like, I didn't think about how much I really did learn until the question was asked, and it's a ton. So after I go through each race and kind of the highs, the lows, I'll also talk about which one I think I'm going to sign up for. Which one really tickled my fancy out of the 2. And maybe at the end, we'll talk a little bit about training, as well as what Jacob talked me into doing this week. And yeah, I think that's going to be it. So first, I want to dive into the Jigger Johnson 100 up in New Hampshire in the White Mountains. And I've been saying for a long time that I think that this race is going to be like one of the more popular Northeast races. And it's definitely one of the more difficult Northeast races. We saw last year, I think only, 14 people finished out of maybe 50 starters, which is not a lot of people. And this year had a DNF rate of, I think, 50%. And last year's weather was garbage. This year's weather was absolutely perfect. I don't think you could talk to somebody that was in that race that wouldn't say that they had the best weather that they've ever seen up there. And you really could not ask for something that was, a better weather day. So I got up there and I was pacing my buddy Ryan, and Ryan is very fit. We've talked about it. He's also going to be a guest on the podcast soon, and we're going to break down exactly his perspective. So please know that anything I'm going to say, good or bad, about Jigger Johnson, and I do have good and bad things to say about it, is going to be from an outside perspective and just in my conversations with him. And number one, I was shocked at how few people signed up for this race. Last year was its first year, and there was 40-something starters. This year, we were shocked. There was only 55. And you'd think after Aravipia picked it up that it would be a much bigger race, or they did a ton of, promotion for it and things like that. It's in the middle of the summer. I thought it's just a beautiful time up there, and I thought there'd be a lot more people signed up for the race. There wasn't. It was small. With that came, I don't want to say there just wasn't a lot of hype. I look at aravipia races, and even I know Jamil, he used to run in an inaugural race of all of the new aravipia races. He hasn't been out here yet. And I know he's a busy man, but just that tone of not a huge aravipia presence, which is fine. White Mountain Endurance, they do a great job, and it is a small little race, but you just go in with a little bit of expectation when you see what aravipia does on the West Coast and what they do in Arizona. And then you kind of got there, and the only really way you would know that aravipia was there was the staff wearing aravipia t-shirts. And this is straight from Ryan as well, the aid stations, meh, like not that great. And there weren't a lot of them. And I know some of them were remote, but nothing too crazy. And in my own personal experience, some of the people that I talked to at aid stations were kind of rude. And I'll tell you why I'll tell you like the little confrontations that I had with them, but like just not super fired up. If you watch the video last year, they like dressed up in a Jigger Johnson costume. They like threw an axe to start. There was just like a lot, even at a smaller crowd last year. I felt like there was just a little bit more where maybe they were kind of bummed that it wasn't that big, or that it didn't get more exposure. I don't know, but that's at least from like my first initial like experience with them. As far as the race is concerned, here's why I think that it's so difficult, or what makes it very, very hard. Like, why is there only a 50% finish rate? It is typical Northeast, where if you've ever done an ultra in the Northeast, and I've seen memes about it on Instagram where it's just somebody standing there and they're like, you think here in the Northeast we would make trails and switchbacks? No. Here in the Northeast, they kind of look where a river flows in the winter or in the spring when all the snow melts, and then they just make that the trail. It's just straight up, and it's usually in some sort of rock bed or boulder field. It literally is a dried up riverbed. So it's not very runnable. And were there runnable sections? Yeah, I mean, the 15 to 18 miles I did with Ryan, we ran a bunch. But when you are not running, it's like, it's all or nothing. It's either like scrambling on rocks and walking through baby head fields, or you're able to kind of run. So I think the technical aspect of like straight up and not runnable makes it pretty tough. The second thing that I think made it really, really tough, and why there's such a huge DNF on it, is it's fully self-navigated. There are no course markings whatsoever. Now, they have smaller distances. I think there was a 20 mile and maybe one other distance. But as far as the 100 mile is concerned, no ribbons, no arrows, no flags. You need to be able to self-navigate on a watch with a GPX or with a map. When I paced Ryan, I literally ran like this with my watch out in front of me, watching the arrow, because the lack of quote unquote trail, you would just like make a right in between two trees, and that would be the way. And you'd be like, that's not the way we have to go. Or you'd be at the bottom of a rock field and it would turn to the left, and you'd be like, that's not where you want to go. And if I hadn't practiced with my Garmin and knew that my Garmin will tell you if you're off course literally to like the 100th of a mile, I wouldn't have believed it. Like, it's good within like 10 feet, give or take. So when it told me to turn left, it was time to turn left. And a lot of the times we did that, and like I said, I only did 18 miles with them. A lot of the times we did that, we weren't turning onto a trail. The trail didn't Y, it didn't fork, there wasn't an intersection. It was pretty much like, oh, you're running along these rocks? Okay, now go run along those rocks. And the only real time where, I wouldn't say we got lost, but we got off course a couple times. And the only real way to know we were off course is like you were just straight up bushwhacking. Like, the one time when I was like, Ryan, it says we're going the right way. And he's like, dude, this is not the right way. We were literally like in a bush. Like, we were like stepping over and climbing through. So that makes it pretty tough. That self-navigation piece definitely makes it very, very tough. The last thing I think that makes it very, very tough is the distance between aid stations. They are far. I want to say it's an out and back. Not something I love either. But I think there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 aid stations. So that's like one every 10 miles out. And then the same on the way back. Maybe 4, because there's a little bit of change on the way back. It's not like a true out and back. The last 6 or 7 miles, you change a little bit. And that was a course change due to like a mudslide. Some roads got cleared out. So I don't know if they'll go back to the original course last year. But they were like, you're like 10 miles. But if you've run ultras before, you know how long at night, at the end of 100, in very technical terrain, how long that could take you, right? And Ryan had been out there and done the race the year before. So he was prepared for these long 3-4 hour stretches. Like I said, it's an average of 10 miles between aid stations, but some of them I think pushed up to 17 miles, 16, 17 miles in between aid stations. So Ryan knew that he needed to carry a ton of nutrition on him. Water, not a big deal. There were plenty of places, streams, if you had a filter, plenty of places for water. He never had an issue with water. When I was with him, we never had an issue with water. But food, if you didn't carry food and you weren't able to keep calories up for sometimes 5-6 hours, depending on how you felt, that was really, really tough. The last little bit, maybe this is like 3B of why it's really tough, is a lot of the most difficult section of the course happens right before the turnaround. So when you get to 40 miles, you're pretty much, they shoot you straight up and then you come straight back down even steeper. And you're sitting at that turnaround at night, most likely, and you're saying to yourself, I have to turn around and go straight back up and then straight back down. And that's what Ryan was saying last year that really like mentally broke him as far as like how he DNF'd and why it didn't work out was mostly because of that issue. So those 3 things really, the self-navigation, the technicalness of the Northeast trails, and the distance between aid stations really, really made that difficult. As far as the crew and pacing the event, here's another thing that frustrated me a little bit, but I kind of understand. And it's one of those things where you can't complain about it after the fact because you knew about it. Kind of like how I complain about how Grindstone, the course was really 68 miles instead of 62, when I knew the whole time it was 68 and not 62. There is no crew support allowed at any of the aid stations. You were allowed to swap pacers in and out. So I was a driver. So I was allowed to drop a pacer off and pick a pacer up and be the driver and stand there. But all aid had to come from drop bags. And for those people that love drop bags, and that would be one of the things I talk about where it's like what I learned when I crewed and paced. But there were some times where like felt like I was trying to help while I was waiting, and they were just like, no. And when I said before that some of the crew was a little bit rude, the live tracker was shit that they posted on their website. It was awful. There were times where it was cutting out. There were times where like Ryan wasn't even on it. They were hours behind. Okay, not a big deal. But when you're trying to switch out pacers and you don't know when to go to an aid station with that pacer, you're going to err on the side of caution and you're going to get there early. We were blessed that Ryan brought an InReach and he had a Garmin InReach on him. So we pretty much had him every 10 minutes. But that InReach, it died on him, or he was in some thick forest and it cut out for a little bit. So now where I'm trying to bring him a pacer at 3:00 in the morning, he's 50 miles in, and the longer you're in, the range of that time to pick him up increased. So we didn't want to miss him. So we got to the aid station pretty early in the middle of the night, 3:00 in the morning. It was at a campsite. Ryan was doing really, really well. So there was maybe one other person there waiting. And I kind of like walked by the aid to kind of like get an idea of where his drop bag was, just so I can be like, Ryan, your drop bag is in the top left. Because there's 60, 50 drop bags there. And the girl was like, you have to go on the other side of the fence. There's no crew support allowed. And I was like, okay, like calm down. It's 3:00 in the morning. He's not even here yet. I'm not giving support. You know, I'm not handing him anything. It just rubbed me the wrong way because we were there helping other runners. You know, as they came in, we were cheering for them. Like, hey, what do you need? This, that, and the other thing. But as soon as it was like we were giving kind of some love to our own athlete, they decided to like put their foot down. Now, if their tracker was on point and we knew he was coming, I wouldn't have even been there. I didn't want to wait around there at 3:00 in the morning for him to show up. You know, it was really a fault of their own why we were there early. And at this particular aid station, it wasn't like on the side of a road where we parked, but it was in a campsite. Like our car was parked in a parking lot and we were quiet. Like their generator was louder than we could have ever been. And I guess maybe when the race, if it gets bigger, I could see how that's an issue, but maybe she just could have said it a little nicer, I guess. Like the woman that I was with that paced him from that spot kind of looked at me like, I can't tell if she's serious or not. And I was like, no, dude, I think she's pretty serious. I really do. And like Ryan came in and we were all like standing on the other side of the gate. And he's like, what are you doing? I was like, this is a serious aid station, you know? And we went to another one where the staff was taking help. You know, they were helping us hand out PBJs and things like that and like kind of volunteering. And this one aid station, they were just like, no, I don't know if they were grumpy because it was the middle of the night and they were cold, or if they didn't want us just to see them sitting scrolling on their phone while people were coming in, because people were coming in like every 45 minutes to an hour. Like it wasn't like a big race where people were coming in. Like I said, at 50 people with a bunch of people dropping out at 50 miles, it's going to spread pretty thin. It helped that Ryan is so dialed in with like data and research. Like he made our jobs as crew and pacers very easy. Like he knew exactly what he needed, when he needed it, what he wanted. And it was like clockwork. He was in and out. He was in the top 7 or 8 people the entire race. And the pacers got on. He had a pacer from 50K, I think, 32 to 50. And then he picked up Amy that was Justin. Then he picked up Amy from 50 back to that same 50K aid station, which would have been, I guess, maybe like 70 or 80 miles. And then I picked him up from like 80 in. And it ended up being 108 miles. He's a legend. Like he just moves so well. He knows how to identify issues that he's having and fix them immediately. And it's a testament to his training. Like the dude trains so well and tests so many different variables on so many different courses, so many different test races, testing all types of conditions. Like if the dude's feet hurt, he knows how to fix it. If his stomach is off, he knows what else to eat. Like it was just clockwork. And yeah, it just made our job really, really easy. He came in a little bit faster than he wanted. The race started at, I think, 6 a.m. and he was done by the following 10 p.m. I think he finished 5th or 6th. And if you've seen any of my reels on Instagram, the one I even posted today, the dude was sprinting it. Like sprinting it. Tried to drop me. And that's just, yeah, it was awesome. And I think if the weather was any different, it would have been a really different race. I can understand how last year was an absolute disaster because all those dry riverbeds that we were running through as quote unquote trail, I have a feeling that last year they were actual riverbeds and these guys were trying to go uphill and downhill in a river on slippery rocks, and that was just probably not fun. If you have any questions about Jigger Johnson, leave them in the chat, and I will gladly answer them before I move on to the crazy 100. Now, I know there is a little bit of a delay, so if you do have questions, just leave them in here, and I will get back to them. And I apologize for anybody listening on the playback that has no idea what I'm talking about. I do stream these whenever I get to them. I try and get here once a week, give you some notice on Instagram. I am going to live stream and go through each of these weeks as I train up to Javelina 100. So you can hop in that live stream if you want, answer any questions and things like that. If you're not catching this wherever you are listening to it, wherever you stream your podcast. And if you are listening to it on Spotify or Apple, same thing like that. Just please, if you could, just leave a review. That would be really, really helpful. Chad asked in the chat, same course, shorter distance. So the distance of the race actually was longer. So this was something that I really didn't understand when they were first sending it out, when they sent the race briefing out, the race manual. They didn't really get to this, and it wasn't until we were on site that I truly understood what happened. The change they made was in the beginning. So you went out, and then you go over, I pronounce it the Osceolas. So the Osceolas are a really, really difficult climbing section, and then that's just part of the out. And last year on the back, it was a true out and back, so you had to go up and over the Osceolas again on the way back. Now, what happened was the Sawyer aid station, which was right at about the 50K mark, it was a little bit more north off the road on like a dirt road kind of. And that whole road apparently got washed away through the winter and the spring, to the point where some of the race directors were saying they probably won't switch the course back to the way it was. Now, that really what made them do is it made them, instead of going think about a straight line across, they kind of had to U down around that down to kind of where the main road was, which made access way easier for us, but it added some distance to the course because now we had to U down, and then they kind of followed it right back up to where the original course was to just avoid where that mudslide and where that road washed out. Now that extra miles, if they would have added that aid station extra miles and then went back over the Osceolas, it would have increased the distance of the race up to 114 miles on a race that's already listed at 106 to 108 miles. So what they decided was, well, we have to keep this Sawyer aid station away from where it was, and we don't want to make the race 114 miles with the high DNF rate we already have, and just a really, really tough course to begin with. So instead of going back over the Osceolas, they kind of continued you straight right back to the finish, which cut 6 miles off of what I would have had to do at the end. So the distance of the race remained the same. Now, arguably, is it easier? Dude, I could not imagine going over the Osceolas with Ryan, I would have been able to do it because I was at the end of the race. But thinking about Ryan having to go up and over those mountains again, and it's a true testament to the guy that won the race last year, Northeast legend. What he did in those conditions up and over the Osceolas twice is just insane to me. So talking, like I said, to the RD at the finish line with Ryan and a bunch of people and still seeing a huge 50% DNF rate, I have a really, really strong feeling that they are going to keep the course. The course that was this year, I think you're going to see as the course moving forward, unless something dramatic happens with that road, that Sawyer road that was, like I said, pretty much just a single track dirt road that's not really used from what I could tell that often. And they didn't really sound like they were going to be pushing to fix that road. I think that's the course that you're going to see. So 108 miles, I think he ended up getting 22 or 23,000 feet of ascent and probably about the same descent. There's another question. Is it on the list? I'll definitely talk about if I'm going to shoot up there and do this race after I talk about Crazy Mountains. I just want to be able to compare the two and just do pros and cons. So if you have to jump out of here, just catch it on the playback. Todd asked, did I use my poles on the pacing? I wanted to. And always be prepared, right? Stay ready. So I brought my poles. My section, without the Osceolas, I think my section with the Osceolas would have been about 6,000 feet or so, 6,000 or 7,000 feet. With them taking them out, my section of 18 miles was really only like 2,500 feet. And so right there, I was like, I don't really think I'm going to need my poles for 2,000 feet over 18 miles. And then luckily I had Ryan, who generally hates poles. So he's not really a good guy to ask about it. He yelling at me in canyons. He just hates poles. He thinks they make you slower. He definitely thinks they help in some context, but he thinks people use them too much. So I didn't really get a good answer from him. But talking with the other two pacers, Justin and Amy, they were like, when it's uphill, it's scrambly. So you kind of want your hands. And when it's downhill, it's steep and scrambly. So you're kind of scooting on your butt. Once again, you want your hands. So even what they did, I don't think that they had much more difficult sections than me. They each did about 50K each with 8 to 10,000 feet. Like I said, I think they did 10 each, and then the other rest got to where to be. But they were like, Brad, you're not gonna really need. They're just gonna be more annoying than helpful. And in a situation like that, I trusted their judgment, so I did not even bring my poles. And not one time, I think if anything, I did say, wow, I'm really glad Amy and Justin told me not to bring my poles, because I wouldn't have used them and they would have just been a huge pain in the ass. So no, I did not. Thanks for the question. If you guys have any more questions about Jigger, please leave them in the comments. I'm going to jump into the Crazy Mountain Ultras after I take a sip of water. So Crazy Mountain was the following weekend. So we got back. I think me and Ryan, the race was Friday into Saturday. And then Sunday, we kind of got out of town and got back. And then I had Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday before flying out to Crazy Mountain. And Crazy Mountain was going to be a family trip. So at first, I was just going to go out and crew for my buddy Taylor. And then Tara's like, I've always wanted to go to Montana, Yellowstone. And we take the family away for a big trip. So it turned into a big trip. And she's a saint, because I told her, hey, when I'm crewing. You got the kids by yourself, or you can come out a couple of days after the race. And she's like, no, I want to see the start. I want to see this. I want to be a part of the race. I want to meet Taylor, things like that. So she all came. And the day we're leaving, just a little side note to add to the madness of going on vacation with the family, the Airbnb called us literally at 5 p.m. We were supposed to take off at 7 o'clock the next morning. It was like, we're going to have to cancel. The AC is broke. And we were like, no, like unacceptable. And they're like, well, you could come and not have any AC. And we kind of looked at the weather. They were going through like a heat wave, but not a lot of humidity. Long story short, we stayed there. It was hot one day. It ended up being fine. So I got in and met up with the guys from Recovery Strong that were also going to be helping Taylor, and just huge advocates of them and what they do for me. And it's just, yeah, I can't say enough about those guys. So I got to bump into them quick just to go over quick logistics. Taylor is very old school. And frankly, there's a part of me that probably thinks that he doesn't really want us there. I'm not saying he doesn't want us there, but he's very good at doing his own thing. And if anything, we were told, like, just don't be noisy, just like, don't be a distraction. He's going to do his own thing. And those were from the people that knew him best. So he was like, guys, I don't want anybody to start. He's like, I'm not social in the morning. And I'm like, that's awesome. Cause I understand those type of people. I understand the people that are just out to do it. My buddy Jacob, for one, is a kind of guy that's like, I just kind of want to go for the adventure, and I don't need all the sparkling crews and pacers and things like that. So I get it. So we didn't go to the start, which allowed me to kind of sleep in a little bit. So it really wasn't that bad, but we knew that we were going to meet him at the first crewable aid station. And I want to say that was about 20 miles into the race. So we got there just totally remote, especially for a guy like me, just off the beaten path. I had like a minivan that we rented, and it was all dirt road, like 20 miles an hour, like all the way out to this aid station. And I had the family. Avery and Brody love races. They're super social, so they got to meet all the guys that were there with us. I finally got to meet Pam. I got to meet Taylor's wife. And we're all like, we do the aid station. He's in and out of the aid station. I think he was doing he smoked that race, but he was in and out. And we knew that we had a long day ahead of us, mostly because the aid stations, it was just a lot of driving around the mountain. They weren't necessarily far for the runners. It was more like for us. Each trip between aid stations was hours, especially with the dirt roads and things like that. So we're like, let's go get coffee, regroup. I was going to send Tara off, and then I was going to hop in with Pam. And they were like, you've never met Pam. Is it cool that you're going to hop in with her? I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, this is the best part of Ultra, is meeting new people. And if she's cool with Taylor, she's definitely cool with me. And if you follow Pam on Instagram, every single time I seen her, she's smiling. And smiley people are my people. So I was actually kind of excited to hop in with her and kind of get Taylor's side of the story and, you know, learn a little bit about him and learn about them. And it just turned out to be so awesome. And we pull out of the parking lot, my phone rings, and we got like no service. There's no service anywhere. Maybe like one bar. And Tara's calling me immediately. And I'm like, shit, did I forget something in the car? Like, what did I forget? And like, she's like, do you need me to pull over? I'm like, no, I'll answer quick. I'm like, hey, what's up? What's going on? She goes, Brody just blew chunks in the minivan. I'm like, what? She's like, as soon as you pulled out of the parking lot, he said, Mommy, my tummy hurts. And he threw up everywhere in the minivan. And I was like, all right, do you need me to stop? Do you want me to come back? Like, we don't really have time for that. She's like, no, I'll figure it out. I just had to tell you. Now you know. It turned out that he just maybe had a little bit of altitude sickness coming from sea level up to 8,000 feet, and just a new routine for him. He's like me, a very new routine, but it ended up being fine. But I didn't find out till 8 hours later. You know, I was waiting till I had service again. I told her, I was like, I'm not gonna have service for like 8 hours. She's like, it's okay. I'll figure it out. I have people I can call. It's going to be all right. And I called my brothers quick, and I'm like, hey, can you just check in on Tara? Please check in on her. And they did, and it turned out great. Long story longer, we made it to the next aid station, and another great aid station. He was, once again, in and out. Spirits were high. And from the guys that were there last year, when he wasn't having such a great day, they were like, he is having a really, really good day so far. Excited for the night. He was excited for it to cool down. It was a little bit hot. He had a little bit of nausea going into certain spots before that, but generally just crushing. And the views for us, just so good and much different than crazy. I mean, much different than Jigger with the amount of people in the race. So when you're crewing, there was a lot more people coming through. You were allowed to actually be there and crew and support. So it was just so much fun. Like I said, the weather just perfect. And for a guy like me, just looking up at these mountains, and we have mountains here in the Northeast, but I mean, Jigger, I think, went up to 4,300 feet, where we were hanging out at 8,000 feet. And it's just a different type of mountain at that elevation. And, he got through 40 miles, like in a breeze. And then pretty much we were left with the decision after that, where you could make it. There was 2 crewable aid stations next, but you were only going to make it to one of them, because the drive from one to the next, especially with a guy out in front that was moving quickly, you were not going to get. So we were like, all right, me and Pam, we'll go to that one. We'll go to the first one. The recovery strong guys, you guys will go to the second one, and then we'll try and figure it out. So me and Pam, we got there early. This one was a little bit of a remote. We had to park, and then we had to hike about a mile to the aid station, uphill there, downhill on the way back to the car. But just an amazing, amazing aid station. Like the people, the vibes, just set up really, really well. They used track leaders, so they had Starlink set up. It was fun to be there. I got to meet some people that were volunteering. Just everyone just really, really nice. Just a great experience. Came through that right at about dark, and he picked up his pacer, Adam, for the first time there. And he was just like, yeah, we're going to go crush the night. He's like, we are just going to be catching people. It's going to be awesome. And like, that makes us excited. So we knew that he was feeling good. So I knew we weren't going to see him at the next one. So we kind of piggybacked to the last aid station that we'd really see him before the finish, and got to that one and had a little bit of sleep. We got to sleep a little bit. He started to get a little cold at night, but pretty much was just in and out of aid stations, so he didn't get too cold. He was living on coffee in the middle of the night. I think Pam gave him a handful of blueberries, a couple gels here and there, but just very, very simple. Very, very like not overthinking things. Just super, super simple, in and out. When we saw him just before the sun rose, we knew that he was going to be so close to 24 hours. Like, we knew it was going to come down to the wire, and we knew that he wanted 24 hours. So when he came into our last aid station, it was quick. It was like, what do you need? Here it is. Get the hell out of here. Haul ass to the finish, and let's see what happens. And we got back to the finish. Just an awesome, like I said, awesome finish line. And came in at 24 hours and 29 minutes. Redemption from last year when he had a DNF. And just an overall amazing, amazing experience. Everything from just being in Montana, which is just completely different than what I'm used to. The guys that he brought out with him, his wife Pam, the race, the aid stations we could go to, even though so remote, they did a great job of letting us know where we could be, how we were going to get there. Just overall, a really, really nice race. But with that said, really, really difficult. He made it. I mean, Ryan made Jigger Johnson look really, really easy. And I think Taylor made Crazy Mountains look really, really easy. And that's something that a guy like me needs to think about when choosing a race. And as much as I loved Crazy Mountains, I think there's some things that you could train for, and there's some things that they just are. And altitude has not been something for me that has worked out in the recent past. I mean, going back to Grand Canyon in March at 8,000 feet, I felt 8,000 feet. Going out to SB50 in Utah in June, I felt 8,000 feet. And although I loved Crazy Mountain, I feel like you can heat train. I feel like you can mountain train. You can get on the stair climber. You can get on treadmills with big vert. But unless you're like sleeping in a tent with the altitude tent, I think it's really, really hard to overcome altitude if it bothers you. And it bothers me. Simple as that. So I think of like Jigger Johnson, where I hate the technicalness. I hate self-navigation part of it. I hate no crew and pacer support. I hate all that. But I feel like I can get over that faster than teaching myself or adapting to elevation. Now, granted, could I go out to Montana for 2-3 weeks? I mean, I just got back from 2-3 weeks, and I think my watch said I was acclimated up to like 7,000 feet, and I felt much better. And when I got back down here, I raced out of my face on Monday when I got back. And maybe I'll talk about that quick. But I just think for me, I think that Jigger would be more realistic. It's also closer, not flights and things like that. But with that said, I think I'm going to sign up for Crazy Mountain. I think I'm going to go out and do that and figure out a way to make it happen with the altitude. It was just so nice. And it was a course, and it was an aid station volunteer system, and it was a race director that like I just want to be a part. I want to be a part of the race. The buckle was a freaking plaque. Thing was this big. It was huge, and it was dope. And I kind of want to get my hands on it. So I think as of right now, especially if I can talk Ryan or Jake or someone into coming out and doing it with me, because if I go out and do it, crewing it really, really hard and pacing it really, really hard, I think it's just going to be like an in and out trip. So it'll be a drop bag kind of trip, and that will get into kind of what I learned pacing and crewing for those two races. But yeah, I think Jigger Johnson is going to have to take the back burner for now until things just get sorted out. I think it's just still in its early infancy. And I think we're going to go out and do Crazy Mountain if I don't hit any of the lottos for like I'm going to put in for the lotto for UTMB. I'm going to put in for the lotto for Leadville. I'm going to put into the lotto for Western States, all those things. So depending on how the lottos go, I think that, I'm not going to take the easy way out, and I'm going to go out. And I know that Colin Cottrell, he needs to go back for redemption, so he'll be there. I had a really dope Airbnb, and the people were really, really nice. So I kind of have a place I know that I could stay, and I know the logistics of staying there. So I think, we might be going back to Montana for that race. As far as what I've learned before I finish up on what I'm doing this week and how training has been, I got back. I'm not going to talk about the whole airplane. If you follow me on Instagram, you know what a disaster it was getting home. I flew Delta. If you guys don't know what's going on with Delta, it's just been a poop show, and I got caught in it. But that's fine. There's people that suffer way worse than me, so I'm not complaining about it. It is what it is. I got back Monday. I left Montana on Friday. I got back to New York Monday afternoon in an airport that I didn't take off from. And there was a 5-miler, part of the summer run series that I've been running. And I just needed to shake the cobwebs off. I felt crappy. Been living in an airport for 3 days, eating fast food, drinking soda. I felt crappy. But I was like, if anything makes me feel better when I'm feeling crappy, it's running. And I wanted to run. So to give some perspective on how happy I was with this race, my 10K PR is 7:32 pace. I want to say maybe 7:30 pace. And that's for 6.2 miles. I ran the 5-miler at 6:54 pace. 34 minutes and 30 seconds for a 5-miler, full send. Went out definitely too hot. As always, I think my first mile was 6:22. My second mile was 6:44. My third mile was 6:45. So I kind of settled into that 6:45, but I was with a nice group, but they started to pull away from me. I paid for that first mile. The fourth mile, I kind of got discouraged as that group pulled away from me. In my fourth mile, I went 7:12. And then I was like, okay, stop being a little bitch. You got one more mile to go. And then I pulled like a 6:58 for the 5th mile. And I was 37th overall out of like 1,500 people, top 3% of the race. All things considered, very, very happy about it. Paid for it as far as muscular fatigue. Followed it up Tuesday with a 10-miler, which back in the heat and humidity definitely was something to get used to again. There was no humidity. There was heat, but humidity is a different animal. And then, so I had to worry about that. And then yesterday I tried to get another 10-mile in and just suffered. Like my watch was like, you're well recovered. And I'm like, dude, I was doing 112 heart rate because that's as fast as my little legs would carry me. I was trying to push it, but they were smoked, which is why today I only went out and ran 4 miles today. So I'm up over 30 for the week. Last week, I got a lot of vert and I did a ton of family hiking, and I made a story about like, you can only do what you can do when you're on vacation. I wasn't lazy, but I ended up getting only 26 miles. I got 26 miles up until Thursday. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I was living in a airport, and I'm not going to be one of those people that runs in the airport. I also only had one change of clothes, so I wasn't going to get my one change of clothes sweaty, not knowing how long I'd be living in the airport. So the fact of the matter is I just got 26 miles after 3 weeks around 46, 47 miles. Just counted as a pullback week. And this week I'll definitely jump back up into the probably low 50s. I'm going to run 10 tomorrow, Friday. And then Saturday, depending on how my legs feel, coming into Monday's event, I'm probably either going to ride the bike or maybe just push a little bit and try and get like to that 55 miles. Todd asked in the chat, was that a road or trail 5-miler? It was on the road. It was on a flat beach road. I think it had 80 feet of change. Pretty much just an out and back on the boardwalk right by my house along the beach. Was a little bit breezy, which made it nice, but it was definitely hot and humid. But no nutrition with me. I literally just went for it. And it feels good to just send it every once in a while. And I've really been liking speed work in my training. And I think overall, I'm going to jump on here and do another live stream talking about exactly what's going on with training. But I think one thing that the trip taught me was just run and have fun and build mileage and listen to your body and don't overthink it. And once I get to a volume that I want to be at, that's going to be when I can really start to tweak and change things. But I'm not going to get crazy. What I learned pacing and crewing the ultra marathons, one of the great things that I got to experience was seeing the front of the pack with both Taylor and with Ryan, because they're so fit. The races I've done, I've only seen carnage, really. I mean, canyons, we did okay. There wasn't a lot of carnage in canyons. There was one aid station a mile 80 where Ryan got me out of there quick because he didn't want the black cloud to start to suck me in. But at SP50, I struggled a lot, and I was with a ton of carnage, a ton. And what I learned was that the people in the front are keeping it simple. And the people in the back are trying to compensate for something. And I don't know what that something is, whether it's a lack of just experience or too many cooks in the kitchen telling them how they need to race ultras, or a lack of training, confidence. I don't know what it is, but myself included. I think about all the things that I worried about going into my 100K and going into my 100 canyons and going into SP50, and all the things that I think about. How many times am I going to change my shoes and socks? Do I have the exact amount of perfect calories? What is going to be the exact foods that I'm going to be eating? What are my exact paces going to be? What time am I going to finish? Like all of these things, people in the front in both of those races, I didn't see them worrying about. Like Ryan changed his shoes, but he changed them when he was having an issue. He was prepared for it, but it wasn't one of those things like, I'm halfway in, I need to change my shoes. I went through water, I need to change my shoes. Same with Taylor. Taylor changed his shoes early. He knew early that his shoes really weren't working out. Changed them one time, done. We didn't talk about it the rest of the day. I didn't see him take his socks off. I didn't see him like doing blister prevention. He didn't have all of his toes taped. He didn't have KT tape on his hamstrings. Like all of these little things that I worry about. Like Taylor's like, yeah, you got blueberries? I'll eat blueberries. Oh, you got quesadillas? Yeah, I'll take in calories. I've taught my body how to take in whatever calories I need. They're just calories. That's it. They're just calories. And some calories have caffeine, some don't. Sometimes I need caffeine, sometimes I don't. But it was very fluid. Like I would try and say to, Taylor, like, oh, you're ahead of pace. And he'd be like, I don't care where I'm at now. I'll worry about where I'm at mile 80. I don't care about, I already sat down and laid down for a minute because I wasn't feeling good. And I'm thinking to myself, dude, you were in the top 10 people in this race and you just like sat on a rock for a bit? And talking to him after, he's like, yeah, I need to sit down for a second. Why would I push through pain and suffer for hours and lose hours worth of time when I could sit for 5 minutes, recollect myself, and then feel good and make up all that time pretty quickly? And like little things like that, little things like watching Ryan stop and dip his hat in every single stream, regardless of how far apart they were. Like they could be every 10 feet. If there was a way for him to cool down his system, he did it. Where I'm thinking about myself in canyons, a time I was hot, and I was like, if I stop at all these streams, I'm going to lose minutes and my pace is going to change and this is going to change and that's going to change. No, because I ended up suffering because I was so hot. SP50, I was so hot. So I really took a lot out of that. And I'm trying to like also relay that now known information to my athletes as well that I'm coaching is we can spend so much time overthinking things. And Taylor has always told me, keep it simple. Grand Canyon, he had a box of sugar cookies. Like they're calories. Why does it need to be tailwind? Why does it need to be? And all those things are great. And if you have them, they're great. But that doesn't need to be the focus. We are spending way too much time worrying about little things. Taylor said to me today when I was talking to him, he said that a lot of this sport is just work, not so much talent. That work is the thing that shines. He will say that he's not a very talented ultra runner. But if you follow him on Strava, the dude works harder than most people I know. And that's why he's at the top of his game. He doesn't worry about, like, what's my strength training regimen? Am I doing eccentric ankle movements? And some people do. Ryan is the opposite. Ryan is very into that. So I'm not saying it's bad, but it just doesn't need to be so much noise. I think about the people in the front of the race. They just looked fit and they looked confident and they didn't overthink things. I can guarantee you the guy that won, Jigger Johnson, who flew, dude was so fast. And I don't know this for a fact. I'm only guessing. But I can guarantee you right now, he's not sitting around thinking to himself, did I do enough one-legged squats this week? Did I do enough scraping of my leg? Did I foam roll enough this week? I have a feeling he was just like, where am I running? How am I getting vert? How does my body feel? Adapt. And I'm taking a lot of that into my training now. Like, how do I feel? Can I run? Run. Can I not run today? Don't run. And it sounds so stupid. And, you know, I was also told, like, why waste energy with all this strength training and things like that when you could be focusing that energy on running more or on resting and recovering. Like, run uphill, man. If you don't think that's strength work, tell me your quads aren't burning. Run downhill. You don't think that's strength work? And I'm not saying I'm just eliminating strength work. I'm just saying that, like, when I get to it, I get to it. If it's early in the block and I have some extra energy, I'm going to get to it. But I'm not going to think, like, how many push-ups and pull-ups did I do this week? You know, things like that. That's really what I learned. Just observing. Not only just Ryan and Taylor, but other people around them. Watching them come into aid stations, fill up bottles, and leave. Not like, oh, what do you got? You have gummy worms? Oh, you have quesadillas? Ooh, there's donuts? Ooh, there's this. It was, can you fill my water, please? I'll take tailwind in this, water in this, pack, boom, out. Done. And watching Jacob race, you know, he's very simple. And I think that's why he's so successful too. And I say to him all the time, man, I wish I could be as simple as you are. And he's like, yeah. He's like, just throw some nutrition, a change of shirt, and some shoes and a drop bag and see what happens. Because he doesn't need to worry about, is my nutrition plan going to be okay? Because his fitness is there. Where I was thinking, man, my fitness is just there. So I can't have anything else go wrong because my fitness is only going to get me so far. Where when you're super fit and you have a body of work, that can compensate a lack of altitude adaptation, a lack of nutrition here and there. You can go a little bit longer on your fitness and then catch up on nutrition. But if you're just doing everything to like the littlest bit, and it's crazy because as a school teacher, I say this to my students all the time, like, don't micromanage things. Like, it's a set of known values, a formula, and a solve. That's it. And I think I'm just like having like an aha moment over the last couple of weeks of like, there's certain, and the engineer in me, I can't believe I didn't see this, is like, there's inputs and outputs. We input and we output. And for ultra running, the input is work and the output is fitness and performance. Simple as that. Now, do you need strength work and optimize? Yeah, but like, there's my dog saying hi to everybody. We just don't need to worry about it that much. We just don't need to overthink it. So if you have any questions like what I'm talking about there, I definitely could, you know, go on to that. And Jacob said, yeah, less is more. And like I said, I'm not thinking we need to strip down to bare bones, but I think there's just so much noise, so much speed work is another one. How much speed work you doing? How much tempo work you doing? Like, I just think there's a lot of noise inside this space right now. a space that I've only been around for a year, but I was in the triathlon, Ironman space for a while. And I saw so much noise in that space. Everything from like what kind of swim cap you wearing to like how are we going to oil our legs so that our wetsuits come off faster as opposed to just getting in the pool and swimming faster. I think that's something that I'm going to take into the rest of this training block. And I'm going to rely on the people closest to me to be like, Brad, you're overthinking stuff. Not coaches because I'm self-coached right now, but just friends that understand that. I said to Taylor, tell me if my training is looking soft or tell me if you think I'm overthinking things and I'll stop. I will stop doing them. So before I get you out of here, this week, freaking Jacob again. I guess I've pulled him into some stuff, so he kind of owed me one. We're gonna do the Appalachian Trail New Jersey segment. We are gonna go southbound from the New York-New Jersey border, 72 miles and roughly 9,000 feet, right, Jake? To the Pennsylvania-New Jersey border. We have a kind of start time, afternoon-ish, on Monday. And we are going to get it done. We're going to get it done. And we're going to have some fun. We're going to go for adventure. He's going to wait for me a lot and listen to me complain. And there I was like, when are we going to stop for water? How much water? And he's like, dude, we'll figure it out. So it'll be my first test of like keeping it simple, not having crew, not having pacers, and just having to get out there. Derek asked quick before I get out of here, were both those guys self-coached? Ryan is coached or was coached. I don't think he has a problem with me saying it. Ryan, I'm sorry if you didn't want anybody to know. But Zach Bitter is his coach, an amazing, amazing ultramarathoner. So that was his coach, and Taylor is very self-coached, very, very old school guy. And I think Taylor just learns from talking to people and seeing what works for best for him. He is the king of keeping it simple and listening to your body, putting on volume when you can, and taking back volume when it's not there. So yeah, both of those guys were self-coached. Jacob said, just throw on a vest and go. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're going to throw on a vest, bring some gels, bring a water filter, and go out for 72 miles and see how long that takes. So that's really what I got so far. Like I said, I will go probably after Thursday's actually been really working out because my wife plays beach volleyball with her friends on Thursdays. So when she's not here, this is what I like to do. When she is here, I kind of like to hang out with her in the evenings, which is frankly why I've been slacking off, not getting on here and doing live streams. And I was on vacation for 3 weeks. So I'm back. But I think Thursdays moving forward, I know I've said that 100 times. You can expect an episode. So I'll get an episode out to the other streaming services. This episode will come out tomorrow morning, and we'll have Friday, something for the Friday long run for you guys to listen to. I'll take one more sip of water. If you guys have any other questions, I will gladly take them. I love to talk about everything ultra. And then if there's no other questions, we'll get you out of here. All right, guys. No other questions. Thank you so much. We will reconvene next week. If you'd like to follow along on the AT, I'll probably post some stories if we have service. I will definitely be bringing the GoPro and doing a full-length video on it, the highs, the lows, and everything in between. And then next week, I promise we will talk about the first 5 weeks of Javelin 100 training and what the next couple weeks after that are going to look like. I appreciate you. Thank you. I'll catch you guys soon.